This was chaos that was started in Washington, D.C. On Thursday, the city was peaceful. On Friday, it was not because of the intervention of the federal government.
So have you guys heard what Governor Newsom just did? He literally is suing the President of the United States for deploying the National Guard to protect his state and his city. Can you imagine this?
So President Trump had to act. He has clear legal authority to federalize the Guard when necessary to protect innocent life and property, and especially federal officers and federal property.
Mayor Bass is now making threats against the Trump administration, saying, we need to stop the raids. Or else what, Karen? Stephen Miller is identifying this and calling it what it is. He says, the threat being made here by Mayor Bass is explicit. The mayor of LA is effectively saying the mob violence is caused by the mere presence of ICE in the city, and that the violence against ICE will not stop unless federal law enforcement is withdrawn from the city. This is the definition of an insurrection. LA and California leadership demand the right to illegally import unlimited foreigners into America, to control America's entire immigration policy by fiat, just we don't like it, and so now we don't have to comply. And if they're not so permitted, they're going to allow mobs to just go target ICE with impunity, not even allow them to do their jobs. Now, LA and California are demanding the nullification of the election results now, of federal law and of national security and of the bedrock constitutional command of one national government. And so here is what Mayor Karen had to say.
We need to stop the raids. This should not be happening in our city. It is not warranted. The only thing it does is contribute to chaos. This was chaos that was started in Washington, D.C. On Thursday, the city was peaceful. On Friday, it was not because of the intervention of the federal government.
Law enforcement who's enforcing the law caused the madness, not the people who attacked the federal law enforcement upholding the law. Now, Karen Bass obviously has a strong background as a communist, and so it's not a surprising statement from her. But Stephen Miller is right. This is the implied and implicit threat that's being lobbed all over the country, and it's now spreading around to Arizona. You saw this was the scene here. Phoenix New Times reported this. Said Phoenix New Times spotted ICE and Homeland Security in Arizona in at least 3 spots on the west side of the valley. Shout out. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to Arizona. Glad to have you here. Eventually, a scuffle broke out between a few protesters and Peoria police, and one protester was subdued with a taser. And yeah, there we go. We see it happening right there. So that's in Arizona and another border state. So we're just waiting for these things to spread. We've seen them in Dallas now. We got them in Peoria, Arizona, and we've got more happening, and they're organizing, right? They're coalescing. They've got little communications and groups where they're chatting around and colluding. Remember everything they accused the Proud Boys of doing when they said the Proud Boys were in their little group chats and they were saying they're going to organize an insurrection? What's going on right here? How are they responding to these locations where ICE is and having these crowds come in and just swarm the cops? Sounds like maybe they're in some Telegram groups, and maybe that will be justification for seditious conspiracy charges like they charged the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers with, who never did anything even remotely resembling this. So here we see that President Trump came out and posted on X today after holding a press briefing in the White House. He said the following: if there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke the Insurrection Act. You are warned, so get ready for it. If we didn't get involved, right now Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago. We are not playing around. Here is your favorite president.
If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see, but I can tell you last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible. We have, as you've seen, it was on most of your networks, people with big, heavy hammers pounding the concrete and pounding curbs, pounding it, breaking up and handing these big chunks of concrete to people. And they were taking that concrete, going up on bridges and dropping it into the roof of a car. They were throwing it at our police. They were throwing it at our soldiers that are there. And we got it stopped, and we have them in custody right now. Look, if we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire, and we have it in great shape. We're not playing around.
How will you determine whether or not there is an insurrection?
Well, you take a look at what's happening. I mean, I could tell you there were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They get money. And when you take a look at what they do, where they show up and everyone's saying, what's he doing? He's pounding the curbs. This one guy's pounding the curb, breaking the curb, and handing big pieces of granite. In some cases, it's granite and concrete to other people. And they're running out with it. And then we watch the other people and they try and throw it into the face of the soldiers, throw it into the face of the police, and they hurt some people very badly. They go up on bridges, they drop it down on the cars as the cars are moving. They're not breaking the curb because they're doing a demolition service. They're breaking it to hand out to people as a weapon. It's bad stuff. I've never seen that before.
And this has been going on for days. Remember how upset they were on January 6th for a riot that lasted about 3-4 hours and they returned that same night to vote? This has been going on for days, enabled by their side, and these are coordinated attacks on police. And they just ID'd the guy. We talked about it on the member stream this morning. Reina Eppolito, something is his name, and they got him his ID, and now he's one of the most wanted. But Trump says, look, we're talking about the National Guard. We're not going to wait for the governors to allow their cities to burn because that's what their constituents want. This is America. We are going to create law and order in our states. Here's the president.
You have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor that just happened to be running for vice president, in total, you talk about an incompetent governor. He's an incompetent person.
Yeah, true.
That he was picked. Well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early. We sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
And it's not in spite of Gavin Newsom's best efforts. So Trump is right. He has the right to do this. We're going to hear Tom Cotton explain why that is. But Trump is also warning, you know, America's birthday is coming up on June 14th. And if you are showing up and causing a ruckus on the birthday of the 14th military parade, which happens to fall on his birthday, you're in big trouble.
Any message to adversaries as the Army kicks off the 215-year birthday celebration?
I just think it's amazing. We're going to have a fantastic June 14th parade, Flag Day. It's going to be an amazing day. We have tanks, we have planes, we have all sorts of things, and I think it's going to be great. We're going to celebrate our country for a change. You know, recently, as you know, with World War II, the victory of World War II, I called up France, and they were celebrating the victory. Well, we helped them a lot, as you know. I don't have to get into that. But I called up other countries. They were all celebrating the victory. We're the only country that didn't celebrate the victory, and we're the one that won the war. Okay, if it wasn't for us, that war, well, you would be speaking German right now, okay? We won the war, and you might be speaking Japanese, too. I mean, you might be speaking a combination of both. We won the war, and we're the only country that didn't celebrate it, and we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protest that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
There's a big protest coming out on the 14th, which is going to be the No Kings protest, and they're planning that all over the country. Little Insurrection Day, I guess, on Flag Day. So we'll, of course, keep our eye on that as well. But while all this was going on, Maxine Waters came out and she basically said that don't believe what you saw. All of the protesting was peaceful. And if a couple cars got burnt, don't worry about it. Those are meant for burning and they're not your car. So just relax about it. Mike Johnson responded to this and was basically incredulous. Pretty funny clip. So here's what Maxine Waters said about the violence.
And even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence.
We saw it
on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight and don't just rely on what you're being told. The few incidents that you saw.
Few incidents that you saw are not indicative of what's actually happening there. I think we know that is ridiculous. Here's Mike Johnson saying the same. He got asked about this today.
What is your reaction to Congresswoman Maxine Waters repeatedly saying that there has been no violence in the LA riots? And do you believe that Democrats are making a mistake by not talking about what's really going on here?
Clearly, the Democrats are making a mistake by taking the wrong side here, and I'm just going to, in my southern gentlemanly way, say bless her heart to Maxine Waters. I don't even know how to comment on Maxine Waters anymore. It's madness. I'm going to be charitable and leave it right there.
All right, so good response from Mike Johnson, and Maxine has a lot of work to do to get reconnected back to reality. But in the meantime, yesterday we talked about how the Mexican president, Sheinbaum, she came out and said that it might be time to mobilize our people against the United States, and said that if we dare tax remittances, which would be her illegal aliens, and maybe some lawful permanent residents as well, maybe lawful citizens too, but a lot of illegal aliens come to the United States, take our money, send it via Western Union back over to Mexico to the tune of billions of dollars a year, like $50 to $60 billion a year. That money leaves your community, goes back to their communities, and it builds down there, not up here. So what if we tax those so they don't do that as much anymore? Well, Claudia Sheinbaum said that she's not going to be happy about that. They might mobilize. She was out there going crazy on this thing because that's a huge source of revenue for them. So she had to go wild. Now, similarly, in a co-equal branch of government, Mexican Senate president over there, maybe it's co-equal or not, I don't know, but in Mexico, says the Mexican Senate president also reminds everybody that the Western U.S. was once Mexico while denouncing the deportations. As we talked about, we had the Plan of San Diego back in 1912-ish, where the Mexicans were going to go kill all non-Hispanic Caucasians in their documents. That plan never went off, but it was a plan because they say that the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was invalid and that we stole their land from them after they declared independence from Spain in the 1812s because they couldn't control the land. So we had a war. They got pushed out of Texas. They settled, had a treaty, but they say we took advantage of them and they're unhappy about it. And so all of this land is really theirs. It's called Reconquista. It's a real thing. They write about it. They don't like to talk about it because if they talk about it, then they say, oh, it's an invasion. It's a recapture of our lands. But there's many Hispanic Mexican thinkers who explain it. There's a whole movement called Aztlan, which is also part of this operation. And now the Mexican Senate president is confirming it. So we're all asking ourselves, oh, is this the climactic event? Is this the apex of this generational battle that you might argue has been going on for 175 years? So Mexican president called Gerardo Fernandez Noroña on Monday highlighted that his country says we once owned California, Texas, and much of the United States' western territories while defending the Spanish-speaking people who live there among the deportation efforts, right? So now we've got foreign leaders who are talking about mobilizing and defending illegals. Now, while he conceded that the U.S. had the right to enforce its immigration policies, he was adamant that Mexicans had an ancestral tie to the land and that the government must respect the rights of immigrants within its borders. We must respect the rights of your people in our borders who are here illegally. Names don't lie. He said the most spoken language in LA is Spanish. LA is probably fallen, so just, you know, if that is true, he insisted. I don't know if it's true or not. He says it is. So the names don't lie, he says. He then recalled a 2017 conversation. Trump said, we're going to build a wall, but we'll do it according to the 1830 map of Mexico, he said. But we'll build it up back to the 1830s. Mexicans were settled in these territories before the U.S. was, and the Mexicans living there are in what has always been their homeland. So don't dare think for a second that this is just peaceful protest about due process for ICE deportations or whatever. It's a battle for the homeland. It's a battle for the physical geography around us. And we're here in Arizona, right in the thick of it. So Laredo was a Mexican city. We were stripped of these territories, and they're making these claims to support their illegals in our country doing what they're doing. Fernandez made the remarks amid ongoing riots. His people were waving Mexican flags all over the place, and he was probably enjoying it, sipping on a margarita with Senator Van Hollen. So he's not alone. We've also got this crazy person, Nick Shirley, clipped and posted this for us, says, here's an LA protester who believes the U.S. belongs to Mexico. This individual says, this is our city, and this was Mexico. This person's absolutely wild. So get ready, America, because the Reconquista is going to be led by chemistry class wearing, goggle wearing, loose, looks like maybe empty body armor, or I don't know what that is exactly, but be worried. This was our city and this is Mexico. You can't kick us out of the land that was ours. F Donald Trump. Wow. F fascism. Let our people free. Golly. Let our people go. All right. So this is who they are. All right. So they're out there. What's the windblower for? Who has any idea? So that's the constituency that they're representing. They think the country is theirs and they're acting accordingly. So hopefully the Republican Party wakes up and recognizes the threat that is around us. Senator John Kennedy was also out. Senator Kennedy said, we've got a wolf problem in Los Angeles, which couldn't be truer. Here is what Kennedy said.
The situation is especially complicated. You don't need to be an astrophysicist to figure it out. We've got a wolf problem in Los Angeles. They're not peaceful protesters, they're wolves. They're hurting people. They're destroying property. So you say, well, where's the governor? Well, the governor is a sheep. He'll tell you, I'm a sheep. He's a sheep in sheep's clothing. He thinks cops are a bigger problem than criminals. So then you say, well, where's the mayor of Los Angeles? Maybe she can stop it. Well, she's a sheep too. More sheep is not going to solve the wolf problem. So the federal government sent in troops, and we're stopping the wolf problem. Last night was a better night, and tonight will be better still. It's not hard to figure out to me, and I think most Americans are looking at this and going, stop the wolves, and a lot of them are thinking, you know, nobody's talking about it, but who's going to pay for all this? You know, who's going to pay for all this destruction? Are we going to get the bill? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, we are. And it's another expense that we have to incur at the expense thanks to illegal aliens invading our country. Mark Wayne Mullen, also a senator, said, you know, the left is claiming pro-illegal alien mob violence is the result of federal law enforcement presence, but that's ridiculous. He says literally nobody believes that. America is sick of illegal immigration and weak, lawless, liberal leadership. Now Newsom is suing POTUS, and he just lost. Here was what Mark Wayne Mullen had to say about all of this.
So have you guys heard what Governor Newsom just did? He literally is suing the President of the United States for deploying the National Guard to protect his state and his city. Can you imagine this? Because he's trying to do something that the governor's not willing to do, and that's by restoring law and order. Now keep in mind, the chief of police of LA has already said that he's overwhelmed and he needs help. Governor Newsom wasn't responding, so the president did. People act like this is something new. It's not new. President Eisenhower did this in 57 and employed the 101st Airborne. JFK did this in 62 and 63, and LBJ did this in 65. So this isn't anything new. When the governor is refusing to act and protect its citizens, when a mayor of its town is refusing to act, the president has the authority to do just exactly what President Trump is doing. Keep in mind, President campaigned on, and he's been leading on restoring law and order back to our states, back to our cities, and back to our streets. I support President Trump 100% for willing to have the backbone to stand up and fight for everyone against this Lawless Act.
Shout out to Senator Mullen, and I think that was a little stress ball. Maybe it's that one big beautiful bill business that they're working through. But as we see, this is exactly right. Gavin Newsom can't act because his whole constituency is made up of either illegals or people who are illegal adjacent or people who are making money off of the illegal industry. So he has no incentive to solve the problem in his state. So the federal government had to come in and do it. Now, Tom Cotton was in the Senate today. He chairs the Intelligence Committee, and he went on a tear into these Democrats. Before this clip, we had some Democrats going wild. Sounds like it was Tim Kaine and some other weird blue Democrats. Tom Cotton comes out and delivers, bringing the ruckus on the Senate floor.
Before I get to matters of bipartisan concern on things like shipbuilding and munitions, I'm compelled to respond to the unhinged partisan rants by Senator Kaine and Senator Blumenthal about the riots in Los Angeles. I heard a lot of complaints about the use of the National Guard or the Marine Corps to defend federal property. Not surprisingly, a lot of attacks on Donald Trump. I don't think I heard condemnation of rioters and looters and arsonists and revolutionary anarchists that are burning down parts of Los Angeles. So let's put it in context. What's happening in Los Angeles? For 4 years under Joe Biden, we had a slow motion invasion of this country by millions of migrants, to include murderers, rapists, gang members, and other depraved savages. It wasn't just tolerated by Democrats in the Senate, it was celebrated. The American people spoke very clearly last year. They elected Donald Trump and a Republican Congress to secure the border, to enforce our immigration laws, and to deport violent, illegal aliens. That's exactly what our brave immigration authorities started doing on Friday. You have illegal aliens that were rounded up in Los Angeles that had committed heinous, violent crimes. We simply supposed to overlook them because they're in a democratic city or a democratic state? You can sexually assault children as an illegal alien, but if you're standing outside a Home Depot as a day laborer, immigration authorities are not supposed to arrest you and remove you from the streets to protect innocent civilians? And then what happened?
They use that line a lot too, the Home Depot line.
Anarchists.
They're just out there working. Like, the dude has a laundry list of major felonies in his background. Just because he's now a newfound barber or steelworker like Kilmar was, doesn't exonerate his past in our country.
Revolutionaries, left-wing street militias started attacking law enforcement with bricks and cement and frozen water bottles, spitting in their faces, or much worse, setting cars on fire, looting buildings, setting buildings on fire.
LAPD.
Under these conditions, of course, we should always want the local police to be the first line of authority, and they usually can restore order. In Los Angeles, they could not. How do we know? The Los Angeles Police Department chief told us that his forces were overwhelmed, even as he kept them on all after their shift. The next line of defense against such civil disorder is the National Guard. You would expect a responsible governor, when one of his city's police forces are overwhelmed, to call out the National Guard. But the incompetent and ideological governor of California refused to do so. So President Trump had to act. He has clear legal authority to federalize the Guard when necessary to protect innocent life and property, and especially federal officers and federal property. That's exactly what he did. Just like, for instance, in my state in 1957, when the racist Democratic governor tried to use the National Guard to prevent the desegregation of Little Rock Central High School. And President Eisenhower said, "I don't think so," and federalized the Guard to ensure the desegregation of Little Rock Central. And what did the governor of California do? Rather than recognize the error of his ways and cooperate and try to restore order in California, he began grandstanding, attacking the president, suing the federal government for using the National Guard to restore order, which again is one of its functions. Now, the third line of defense, as Senator Blumenthal referenced, is the Insurrection Act, the use of active duty troops to restore order. The president has taken a measured approach so far. He has said he doesn't think it's necessary to do so, but he will use that venerable law, which goes back nearly to the beginning of our republic, if called for, as it was, for instance, in the 1992 LA riots. Now, again, we all hope that these riots are stopped, that these outlaws and renegades are arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, but the president has a constitutional responsibility to protect innocent lives, to defend federal officers, and to defend federal property, which is exactly what the Marines were sent to Los Angeles to do. Not to engage in crowd control, not to engage in civilian arrests, but to protect federal property. Now, my time has expired, so I won't get to address some of the important issues that you came here to speak about, gentlemen, but I do want to express my thanks to the California Guard and to the Marines that are currently trying to perform the simple responsibility of protecting federal officers, federal property, and help the local police restore order in Los Angeles.
Nice one from Tom Cotton, senator over there in the Senate today, and laying it out pretty simply. It's incredible that the Democratic Party can't figure it out, and they are going to suffer the consequences of this at the polls. This is CNN's Harry Enton in a shorter clip where he's explaining that even legal immigrants are now abandoning the Democratic Party because they don't want this lawlessness either.
Let's just sort of start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift. A 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
All right, now Gavin Newsom is fighting for this cause, right? He is now sued to try to stop Trump. The judge came out, issued an order saying, you lose, Gavin. And now, of course, Trump is warning the insurrectionists. So they're still planning for more protests. Mayor Bass is telling Trump to stop the raids. Trump is saying, we're not stopping any raids, and the Insurrection Act might come out. Tom Cotton laying down the support for it in the Senate. And of course, we'll keep our eye on this as the protests continue, as the Mexican government continues to support the insurrection happening in our country. We'll keep our eye on President Trump, the DOJ, the FBI, Homeland Security, the National Guard, and the DOD, and all of them as they work to secure America.